our meeting. I can't.
Open session.
Open session, public session. Okay, so sorry for the delay, first of all. Thank you for your patience. We had a lot to get through. Okay, so we'll get right to it because we are a little bit behind. So item 2.1 is page 56 of your agenda packets that we have, and that is the adoption of the minutes from December 1st.
So moved.
Okay, John, second. Jennifer, anyone opposed? Okay, so moved. Can I get a motion to adopt our agenda for our open session? Moved. Okay, Jennifer and Anne Marie. Anyone opposed? All right, and are there any members in conflict of interest based on this agenda? Okay, none noted. And there are no presentations or committee reports. So we'll move right to item 9.1, which is on page 62 of your agenda packets. And this is our internal monthly report. So I'll hand it over to you, Chief Bates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So for the month of December, we had 1 complaint, 5 complimentary pieces of correspondence, and no grievances from the association. So the annual totals there were 9 complaints for the year 2015, 40 complimentary correspondences, and 4 grievances from the association.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to receive and file the report? Okay,
Second.
Jennifer, John seconded. Anyone opposed? All right, and item 9.2 is our overtime and court time expense. So are we going to have
I've actually
Marvin review this?
Thank you.
speak to that.
Madam Chair, this is the November report for overtime and court time expense. And for the month of November, we were just slightly over, actually we were under budget when you factor in the extra duty revenue for the month of November by almost $6,000. Year-to-date for overtime, we're $150,000 over budget, but actually Chief highlighted this for me. In October, we were $157,000 over budget, so we're actually down because we generated more revenue through extra duty. So, not to say that's going to continue, but that's a good positive sign. So, for the end of November, we're $150,000 net overtime costs. With respect to court time for the month of November, we're about $15,000 over budget, and you will see in both cases for the month and year-to-date, our court time is obviously driven by the people working patrol that would come in on the days off and attend court. For the year-to-date figure, we're $111,000 over our budget for that period of time. If there's any questions, certainly I'll answer them.
Any questions on the report?
Move to receive and file.
Okay, and second that motion? Okay, Anne Marie, anyone opposed? Okay. All right, and item 9.3, which is the utilization report for overtime.
Thank you. Again, this is specific to overtime, and it represents the utilization of our overtime budget with respect to hours. And for the month of November, we budgeted 529 hours for total operations, and we were 888, so we were over budget by 360 roughly. Year-to-date, from an hours perspective, we're 2,470 hours over budget. On the reverse side of this report, you'll see what this really entails is the majority of our overtime, aside from doing investigations and patrol, is 4,776 hours were specific to backfilling 12-hour shifts to maintain our minimum numbers. That's 398 shifts. That figure 4,700 hours, that's equivalent to 2 FTEs. So the trend is continuing for the balance of the year. So that's basically what we project that we're going to continue that way. So again, if there's any questions specific to this report, I'll see if we can answer.
Any questions on the report? Receive and file?
Yeah, move the recommendation.
Okay. John, you said?
Move the recommendation to receive and file.
Okay, and second? Jennifer, anyone opposed? Okay, so moved. All right, and item 9.4, so Commissioner Norton, I think I'll get you to speak to this. This was a motion that you had brought forward to look at the Fredericton Police Force's reporting system.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. It's just essentially a referral motion to the chief to take a look at a program that was implemented in Fredericton, and I understand it exists in some Ontario communities as well, to see if there might be an opportunity for some efficiency and cost savings for St. John. So it's just a referral motion to the chief to review and advise the board. Okay.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Is there a timeline where you can be looking at?
Whatever your schedule is, it's
Okay.
I know you're busy, chief, so whatever your workload allows.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
to the chief, do we do something like this now?
No,
No?
not that I'm aware of.
Public online reporting is what this is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will tell you that we have a very robust IT program here, and this is not something that would be a challenge to implement. It's just one of those things that I think we need to
Look into. Yep.
Okay,
measure the value and what's the return on the investment.
right, thank you.
Okay. Do we have a second for the referral motion? Anyone opposed? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so item 9.5, and that's our update regarding our 7th board member. So we did receive, last night in council, we did receive the name of our 7th board member. So Mike Haycox will be joining us at our next meeting. Unfortunately, he was traveling for work tonight, so he wasn't able to come. But he's very much looking forward to joining us next month, and he will be sworn in, and we'll get him onboarded, and we look forward to having a full complement around our board table. So very much, so thank you, Commissioner, Councillor McKenzie, for bringing that forward to council and getting that issue resolved. So very good. Item 9.6, so there was an article in the newspaper last week, I believe, on performance evaluation. So in light of that and the questions that came out of that, what I learned was that was actually outdated information that was related to the audit report that we had received as a board back in July, and we had received at that point an update from senior staff, and so we were very well aware of those issues that were brought forward and the status, but because it came out, I wanted to make sure in public session that we addressed those, and we got an update from the chief on where performance evaluations are.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can tell you that with regard to the performance evaluations, there are 3 that are we are unable to complete due to long-term illnesses, employees, and one was for the year 2014, a member was out of the workplace due to a discipline matter. So there was 3 due to long-term illness or discipline matters that we haven't completed. Other than that, all of the 2014 performance evaluations that ought to have been completed in 2015, they're done, and we are well underway into completing the 2015 performance evaluations that we do at the beginning of 2016. And I just want to take the opportunity to point out that performance evaluations were one of 7 items that were audited by the Department of Public Safety in 2015. There were a number of them, notebooks, off the top of my head I can't think of what they all were, but I know that investigations and criminal investigations and follow-up, sorry? Domestic violence, a number, all related to public safety.
Right.
All of which we were met adequacy or were a best practice. The only one that was cited as being a concern was the performance evaluations. And I respectfully would suggest to the board that that has nothing to do with public safety. The public safety and delivery of police service to this community in those audited items we were either deemed to be adequate or a best practice in the province.
That's good. Thank you, Chief. And we did talk about those items. We talked about the audit at length. It's in the meeting minutes, I believe, from the July meeting. And so we did, we took note and we understood, what the background was, and I think, it was just interesting to have that come forward at this point. So it's good to have all the data and to clarify that in public session. So thank you for that update, Chief. Okay, so item 9.7, so this is our appointment of the executive for 2016. So every January in our bylaws, we are required to elect an executive. So that's a chair, a vice chair, and secretary. And as you'll recall, last year, one of the things that we said was, the chair position is a one-year position, and we wanted to make sure that that the face of the commission stays fresh and we get new perspectives. And so we definitely want to go through that process for elections this January as well. So last year, because we only had, I think we only had 5 members in our January, so the first part of the year we only had 5 members around the board table. So we only elected a chair and a vice chair. So our executive was 2 people instead of 3. So now that we've learned from council that we will have a 7th board member, we're going to have a full complement. I would recommend that we elect a full board or full executive at our meeting tonight. And one of the areas that we were also short on because of our short-staffed board, we didn't have any committees, and so we didn't have a nominating committee. So given that fact, we're going to take nominations from the floor, and I'll start the process. And so I would like to nominate for the chair position Commissioner Anne-Marie Mullen. Are there any other nominations for the chair position? Okay, can I get a second? Okay,
Second.
Jennifer and John, your vote?
Just a point of order,
Oh,
Madam Chair.
yes.
There's no need to hold a vote if there's only one nomination. It's
Oh,
by-
okay, so we just go ahead and do that?
It's by
Great.
acclamation.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, and then for the vice chair, are there any nominations? Okay,
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Paquette.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Or no
Just-
other
It's
nominations?
just a call for other nominations.
Okay, it's a good thing I'm moving on from the chair position. So much for all that learning in here. Okay, so I'll accept that. And nominations for the secretary position. We'll see if I can get this right.
But it was just the nominations were closed and then by acclamation.
Oh,
but,
okay,
yeah,
thank you
it's
very much.
it's just-
Okay,
it's just-
yes, it's important. So nominations are closed, and by acclamation,
You are now
I
vice chair.
am vice chair. All right, and are there nominations for the secretary position?
I'll nominate Jennifer Carhart.
Okay,
Get your name
any
right.
other nominations?
It's just a senior.
So nominations are closed, and by acclamation, Commissioner Carhart is now the secretary. Thank you.
Right.
All right, 3 times the charm. Okay, so we will go ahead and send a letter off to Common Council informing them our new executive. And as of the next meeting, those changes will take place. Okay, thank you. All right, item 9.8, so an update on Carleton University research. I'm not sure, this was a little bit quiet for the last few months. So if some of you may recall, last year there was some research conducted. We were selected as one of 6 police forces to across the country to take part in a study on efficiency and what areas we may be able to have this study conducted. And so with our old chief leaving and our new chief coming on, there was quite a bit of time that lapsed between visits. And so back in the spring, the research team was here, conducted a number of interviews, spoke with a number of our members on, how things were going, what opportunities for efficiency were out there. And so back about a month ago, I guess, the chief and I met with the research team because there had been quite a lag, and we talked about, is this something that we want to move forward with? Is this still an area that we see as a priority? And we did. And so the focus for this study, based on the interviews and really where some opportunities might be, is around the data entry, if there are efficiencies there. So basically getting the information from our SOAR members into kind of the data entry systems and into the record management system. And so the team is very excited about that, thinks that that will add a lot of value to their research, and they're looking for areas that could possibly benefit other police services as well across the country. So that's the background. So they are going to go ahead and kind of put a proposal together with that in mind and work with us. So they will come again to visit and kind of explore that in a little more detail and really see what systems we have in place and where the areas of opportunity are. And they'll provide us with an update. So when they're in town, we'll have them in to keep us up to date on their research. Did I miss anything?
No, I think it's down the road. I hope it's something that we can discuss as a potential efficiency to the board.
Good. All right, and our last item on the agenda is we've got a procurement for supply of new vehicles. So who was going to speak to this? Were you going to speak to this?
I
Chief?
could, or Inspector
Okay.
Parks has his name there, so
Okay.
he's procuring.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed in the news media, in the printed media today, that there was some interest in this particular report, so if you wouldn't mind, I'll give you a little bit of background information.
Perfect. Thank you.
First, this report is early by design, with the support of both materials management and fleet management. We were able to put the tender for our 2016 fleet in late December of 2015. And that was done for a reason, because if you take your mind back to last year, you approved the purchase of 5 patrol units. I believe it was in May. The original tender closed in February. For various reasons, we were unable to get to the board until May. We had a very short window in order to approve the tender before it expired, otherwise we'd have to go back out the tender. The first week of January of 2016, the 5th patrol unit actually went into service. It took that long after you people approved the report here for that to go through. And there were a number of reasons before that. Because we were late getting to the board, the supplier, Downey Ford, had an issue getting the cars from their manufacturer. Then they went, because we do things a little bit differently in fleet. Normally you purchase a police vehicle one of 3 ways. You purchase a turnkey, it comes with all the lights, sirens, all wired, ready to go. You purchase a plain where you got to do everything yourself, or you do a hybrid. And we prefer the hybrid because we reuse as much of the equipment out of the old cars as we possibly can to save funds when we go to tender. So these cars had to go to an outside company to be retrofitted with the equipment that the dealer was to supply. Mm-hmm. They couldn't obtain one of the pieces of equipment in a timely fashion, which resulted in a delay. We were supposed to receive our first car on the road for the 1st of September. That didn't happen until the week of the Santa Claus parade, so that was the 3rd week of November. So we've been waiting about 6 weeks to have that happen. So that's why this report is here for tonight, because we're still looking at a 16 to 22 week delivery date, and then we still have to refit the cars. So these new cars, if they're approved here tonight, will not see the road until, if we're lucky, July. And we do have quite an in-depth process. We followed the fleet management policy where they use an ORP. ORP stands for the Optimum Replacement Points Analysis. With that alone, it goes through a number of things. It takes into effect the age of the vehicle, the odometer reading, the maintenance cost rating, fuel consumption, and the overall condition of the vehicle. They assign different points to that. And when it gets to 17, they recommend that vehicle should be replaced in a year. Having said that, all our vehicles are well over the 17 mark for ORP. We then sit down with both the operators, myself, and the mechanic, and we look at each vehicle that we want to replace. And can we get another year out of that vehicle, knowing that it's going to increase in maintenance, but will that maintenance fee be offset by the extra year that we get out of it? We go through that quite a detailed process, and as a result of that, we put this tender in. As you can see before you, the tender is for two different types of vehicles. One is the cargo van. That will replace our current paddy wagon, which is seen its life in patrol. The other ones are for 5 new patrol cars, which will go into the fleet. They will be an all-wheel drive Dodge lease package vehicle. The details are before you, Madam Chair. If there's any questions, feel free to ask. I hope they're done.
Any
Are there a few
questions on the
questions?
recommendation? Mel?
Just, we only have one respondent to the police vehicles. I think last year we had 2 bidders. Just wondering why we haven't got a competitive bid from the other manufacturers.
Through the chair to Commissioner Norton, we did put the tender out as per usual. We did receive a request from Downing Forge to extend the tender. They were the other party that bid it last year. We only had 2 bidders again last year. That was Chrysler Dodge and Downing Ford. Downey's needed a significant amount of time because their manufacturer couldn't supply them with the price. And based on our experience and everything that we had, we were not prepared to extend the tender to a later date. That's the only reason why we only ended up with one
Do you know
supplier.
do you know if the price would have been less, Inspector? The Ford price, would it have been less than the $200,000 that the Dodge price is at?
I'd just be guessing, but I know that the price last year was comparable to what we're here tonight looking at.
I get how much longer did Ford need to get their pricing number, you know?
That was part of the problem. They couldn't guarantee us a date.
Like, was it gonna be, it wasn't gonna be 6 months, but I gather it could have been 2 or 3 weeks.
They didn't say.
But I mean, they certainly would have had it within a reasonable period of time.
Well, I think what he's saying is, you don't know.
I don't
And they
know.
didn't say, so we could say 2 to 3 weeks, we could say 6 months, but they weren't, as the bidder, adhering to the process and saying that they could, in fact, provide it within a reasonable time.
Did we ask them for that, for a time?
They asked for an extension and we said no.
And how long did they ask for an extension for?
They didn't tell you, they just asked for an extension. Obtain the information.
Did we go back to them and ask them for how long they wanted for that extension? Did we ask them?
Those are details, Commissioner, that we'd have to do the purchasing department because they did the actual negotiations. You know, for the police force, I was asked if we could bear to extend the closing of the tender, and my reply was no.
So without finding out how long that extension might be?
So I'm just gonna hold you there, Commissioner Norton, see if anybody else has any questions so that we can just 6 or 7 in a row. Are there any other questions about
Sorry,
this?
is there some policy?
Yeah, there
about
is,
the number of questions I'm allowed to ask?
Yes,
Where-
yeah, it's
where-
in our code of conduct.
How many questions am I allowed to ask?
Oh, I'd have to refer to that. I brought it forward, I think it's
Well,
3. Yeah.
I'm only allowed 3 questions.
3, and then we'll have to see if there's anybody else who has a question.
So a $200,000 purchase, and you're only allowed to ask 3 questions?
We can loop back to you,
Okay.
Commissioner Norton. It's a point of order.
Point of order.
Are
who's
there
ra-
any
who's raising
other-
Who's raising the point of order, Madam Chair? You're the chair. Who's raising the point of order?
Okay, so there's 3 questions as per our code of conduct.
Again, I'm asking who's raising the point of order. You're the chair. Who's raising the point of order?
I'm raising it, saying that there's 3 questions, and that's what I'm gonna hold you to at this point.
You're gonna cut
Are there
lots of
any other
questions. Sure.
questions about this?
The only
point?
question I have on
Yeah,
it is
Brian,
that,
go ahead.
I noticed it's always just 2 companies. It's the other car companies or dealerships, do they supply police vehicles? Like, is it just Chrysler and Ford? It's not GM or?
That's all that apply around here. The GM, they have to bring their vehicles in from, I believe it's Australia, which the cost, it makes it prohibitive for them to compete in our market.
Doesn't make sense. No, that was my only question. I just noticed it's always just, it seems to go back and forth between the 2 vehicles. Oh, that's all.
Anne Marie?
I have a question. Has it ever been looked into, and there's probably could be a good reason why it hasn't, but Fredericton and St. John
Last
looking
year-
together to buy cars and getting a cheaper price? Because I'm sure Downey and those dealers are in both cities.
Through the chair to Commissioner Mullen, the short answer is yes. Last year, in fact, we did a detailed multi-year proposal that we went and we contacted all of the municipalities in the Maritimes, seeing if they would be willing to go with us to try to attain a lower price, and that was unsuccessful. Nobody was interested in teaming with us to go through this process. Now, we are looking strongly through purchasing of all the other tenders that they do provincially, and trying to see if we can leverage that in every area, including fleet, if there's any room there for a better price for us.
Right, but possibly, there's Rossay and there's
Correct.
Fredericton and St. John,
And
never mind Moncton, that's RCMP.
We approached each one of them last year, asking if they would be willing to look at this as a joint venture, trying to get a better price, and the answer was no.
Mm. So maybe we could try every year.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
We might win one year.
Yeah, yeah, they are big. It's a big purchase.
Yeah.
And this is something we know, to your point, we're over the 17 score
Right.
on pretty much every vehicle, so we know this is going to come up over and over again, so if we can continue to do that. Okay. Commissioner Norton, did you want to put a motion in to
Yeah, I'd
go
move it
back and
table.
extend
Well,
that? Because that was your question, right, about
No,
extending
I
the
didn't.
time?
No, what I wanted to do is move a tabling motion to, until such time as we'd have to actually, I think, reject the tender for now, and re-tender the patrol vehicle piece of it until we have a competitive bid process. That's what's
Okay.
best for the taxpayers of the community who are going to ultimately pay for these new vehicles. So the taxpayers should get the benefit of the lowest price, and the only way to do that is to have competitive tension between two bidders, at least two bidders.
Okay.
So I'd move a rejection of that tender and a re-tendering on the patrol vehicle so we get that competitive process going.
Okay. And do we know how long that would take to retender? Just trying to balance so that everybody understands what's the balance between looking at that process versus getting the vehicles on the road. Do we know what that
I can
process
give you
would
an
take?
approximate.
Well, based on your, you've gone through this every year, right? So
Approximately 3 weeks to retender again, approximately.
to get a new price from two vendors, 3 weeks?
You have to go to a whole new tender.
Can I ask a question though?
Okay.
Just so to that point, but further to the 3 weeks, if I'm understanding this conversation correctly, we're not going to suddenly get another company in the city that's providing vehicles. So to that
No.
point, full circle, Downey's was not able to provide a price in a timely manner.
Well,
There's still only one.
so what I heard from that answer was that they said they couldn't meet the deadline. We don't know
Right.
how long that could have been, and to Mel's point, maybe it was 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so if we went back and said, are you able to meet it in these 3 weeks, and then come back in our February meeting with,
We wouldn't be able to be back here until March.
No.
okay, so 2 months, okay.
At best though, right?
At
Because
best,
if
yeah.
you're
Which-
talking 3 weeks to retender, and then if they need 3 or 4 weeks extension.
Okay.
Which sort of delays, Madam Chair, which sort of delays what you mentioned earlier, because some of the cars aren't coming in, or the vehicles aren't coming in and being on the road until July.
Historically, the winter months are the hardest on our fleet. We either lose 3 or 4 vehicles for accidents, or just the age alone. By the time the winter's done, they're just beat. They can't be used in patrol because they're, in our opinion, our mechanics' opinion, they're unsafe to be used as patrol unit. So we have to retire them early, and then we're left waiting till the new supply of vehicles comes in or put them out again. So we end up running short. If we don't get our vehicles by June or July, we end up running short until the end of the year in vehicles.
So this just delays
Which
everything.
adds maintenance on to the other vehicles because they're running.
Yeah,
With the score, you mentioned that the fleet is all scoring, or I think mostly scoring 17 and higher. So does that, once they hit that point of 17, would that be considered just somewhat unsafe?
No, that just means that you examine, the ORP is just a general recommendation. Okay,
Yeah.
once it hits 17, look at your vehicle to see if you should
Okay.
be replacing it this year or not. And like, again, we said we do this every year in great detail. We have many vehicles that are in their mid-20s that we're going to give you another year or two out of them.
Okay.
So we make that based on the vehicles
Okay.
for whatever reason, some vehicles, as you know, that once they start having trouble with, they continue to have trouble with.
Okay, John, sorry, John had a question.
I guess I mean, I certainly think that, you know, if there's a history of significant difference in the cost, we'd have to look at that. But I guess my question is, I understood that we had at least 2 cars in our fleet that wouldn't pass a taxi inspection. And I mean, if we're getting to the point where it's unsafe to be driving these cars around, I don't feel comfortable trying to delay the equipment any longer if it's, you know. So I mean, in your experience, are these competitive bids like within like $2,000 or $3,000, $5,000 of each other, or are they $15,000, $20,000 apart on a vehicle, or what?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
The first part of your statement, Commissioner, that we are operating unsafe vehicles is incorrect. We do not operate a vehicle that is not mechanically fit for the road that passes a safety inspection, let alone a taxi inspection. We don't put our safety of our members at risk. However, I can tell you last year, the difference between the 2 vehicles was minimal. The thing that won them was the outfitter. The price to outfit the car with the emergency equipment was so less with the Ford compared to the Dodge. That's how they won their bid.
How much less? Like, do you know what the fine, like, so we're looking at 200,000 for 5 vehicles, like, is it?
I think it was in the vicinity of $1,200
1,200?
per vehicle. That's what won the bid.
So
So you look at 5 vehicles. so
Okay,
The
so,
difference is $6,000.
I understand. Okay, on our $20+ million budget, so just so we understand the scope, I understand, yeah. Okay, sorry, Brian, go
But
ahead.
the question is that if we re-tender, it delays it by a month and a half or so, are you saying that we're going to be short vehicles?
If we run into the same situation that we did this year, yes. Because the supplier could not deliver the vehicles on their delivery date that they committed to, that we could end up in the same situation where it's 217 and you're getting your 216 fleet on the road.
Like you're saying we could, you're not saying that.
I can't tell you that it
No, I
won't
know,
be here
you're running into
tomorrow.
a snowbank tomorrow night in this big storm, you know, I realize that. I'm just trying to
But
get.
that's
my
why
head-
there's a rush, that's what we're trying to balance, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
trying to
trying
push
to-
this through and have at least 2 months delay in the delivery of the vehicles, and what's the potential risk we're taking in terms of cost that we know we have to pay out now in order to get those vehicles on the road within a reasonable amount of time. Chief, yeah?
I just have a concern about process, and this document is a public document right now. And then we're going back to
Yeah,
tender
that's a great
on
point.
numbers that are already in the public realm.
Yes, it's not really a competitive bid.
And I'm just, it's just a concern now that
Yeah.
these numbers are out here, and, you know, it puts, you know, it may put one bidder at
I
an
think
advantage,
absolutely.
and it disadvantages the one that did comply, because if they come back with a lower price,
Yeah.
I just.
No, I think that's a great point. Okay, so having said all of that, can we go back to Commissioner Norton's motion? I just wanted to get the full, so that everybody understood kind of what the potential pros and cons and cost benefit is. So Commissioner Norton, do you want to
Just to re-tender the whole thing,
re-tender the whole thing? Okay,
so that there's no competitive disadvantage, because the.
knowing that this is a public document?
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
taken off, the Dodge can re-tender its price, can make it more competitive or less competitive, and Ford we'd actually have an opportunity to extend the taxpayer dollar by at least a few $1,000s based on last year's tenders.
Do we have a second for that?
I think I've, over the last 3.5 years, I think this has happened one other time, and we were cautioned big time not to, after we've made it public, because of the credibility and all that stuff. I seem to, I can't put my finger on what the tender was now, but
Yeah,
I think that's,
right. And then there's the additional maintenance cost of the vehicles that we would be replacing, and they would have to be extended for 2 months, so what's the balance there outside of this? But I think that's a really good point.
And speaking to efficiencies, if I
Yes.
may, sorry, Emery, if this eventually would run, and correct me if I'm wrong, potentially with us being short current vehicles, when you're thinking of efficiencies, if we've got to have platoons that are 2 people vehicles, then we're not being as efficient with the staffing that we have through that time period while we're waiting.
Yeah, it's a much more complex issue than a black and white kind of.
More than $1,200.
Yes,
This is-
sorry, Anne Marie.
I think the taxpayer would prefer that we have efficiency in their police department with the cars, and that they will not complain about that, because that's one thing that a police department needs, is cars. It needs people, and the public trust in that they have transportation, whoever they're carrying around the city, and that their employees are not at risk.
Okay, Mel?
Yeah, so what's most important to taxpayers, to citizens, is that we use their resources as efficiently as possible.
Absolutely.
And we have an opportunity, the only consideration that we haven't talked about is what's best for the taxpayers. And what's best for the taxpayers is to spend the least amount of money on purchasing brand new police vehicles. We've heard that there's no safety concern. The delay is a couple of months at most, during which time there can be accommodations made with other vehicles. No one is saying that we're not going to have police cars on the road available to respond. We have the opportunity to look out for the best interest of the taxpayers, and there's a real opportunity to do that if we were to imagine all the conceivable risks, we would never probably do anything. But the risks are minimal and probably not even a small percentage. The reality is that we have a chance to save money for taxpayers and make their money go further. And that few $1,000s is better in the taxpayer's pocket than it is any place else, and we have a chance to do the right thing here.
Okay, Brian?
So, just a point, if you know, we ask for a new tender and we save $6,000, and delays it, and we have to spend $7,000 to keep the existing cars on the road, are we saving money?
Right, and that's what I mean by it's
balance.
not just one cost, you can't ignore the rest of the costs
That's
in
what I'm
going
saying,
through
yeah.
that process. So I think that's our, we absolutely want to, look out for the best interest of
Yeah.
the public, but what's the full picture here, rather than looking at one piece of the puzzle. Okay, Jennifer, you had a point?
Well, I think Brian just articulated it, but just
Yeah.
to help me understand, just because I may have misunderstood, is there or would there not be a cost associated if you end up in September still waiting for vehicles and have to double up because now we have vehicles that you can't run? There is a concern. Would there not be a concern of,
That's a valid concern. For example, this year,
yeah,
we're expecting our new fleet to be on the road by September the 1st. That's 4 months
yeah,
that we operated vehicles beyond what we would want to, that we had to put significant maintenance back into these vehicles to keep them on the road until the new fleet arrives.
right.
Yeah.
So there is a cost associated with that then, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Right. And so would it be fair to say then response time and speed in which, I'm not suggesting that citizens aren't safe as a result, but certainly the efficiency and the time in which people can respond if we're doubling up, and that's something we would have to balance, would we not?
Yep. Yeah.
Just
Anything
say
that
$1,200
you're going
per
to save
vehicle.
in the tender, you're going to lose in maintenance.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so can we, you want another point before we go to the motion?
We're speculating over possible maintenance costs. because we're asking hypothetical questions, well, might there be additional costs? And we don't know that there will be additional maintenance costs. There may be no other additional maintenance costs. What we know for certain is that we don't have a competitive bid process. And what we know for certain is last year, the competitive bid process resulted in a lower tender. What we know for certain is if we vote on this, that we're going to forego the opportunity to provide the taxpayers with an opportunity to get lower priced vehicles. And we're trading that certainty off for a speculative, uncertain knowledge as to possible maintenance, some hypothetical possible maintenance. So we're going to trade a certainty for the taxpayers for a better option for a speculative possible other cost. And again, I would say that the best thing to do for the taxpayers is take the certain savings over the possible extra maintenance costs.
Well, I just want to kind of click down. I want to address that because I think, again, to go back to, we've had many discussions with council, and what they urge us to do on an ongoing basis as a board and within the departments is to start thinking as though we're a business. And I would absolutely say in any business that I've worked in, balancing the trade-off between pay now, pay later is a real, it's tangible. You base it on history, which we've talked about, and in my opinion, from the what we're looking at and the history that's there, maintenance is a real cost. Do a lot of work at the refinery. There's a lot of work on, you do the work up front, you buy new, you don't build this, maybe it'll last another year. Those are real business decisions, and I would urge that the commission take council's direction in thinking like a business. Marvin.
Can I just add something, which I think is important because some concerns that everyone raised. In light of the fact that this tender went out and Downey's did have an opportunity to bid, and they asked for an extension, and it's up to us to decide to get an extension. I think the proper process to follow here is to be in contact with purchasing and say, what are our options here? Because legally there are options that we have to follow and we can't. So I think the fair thing to do is to get in touch with Cindy Calvin and say, okay, is this a possibility for us to reissue the tender knowing that it's closed and so forth? Because a lot of it will be just speculative on our part. We should follow her guidance, I guess. But she deals with this every day, I guess. So.
Then I'd amend my motion to be consistent with Marvin to refer it back to purchasing to see what the options are for the commission.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's vote on that motion. Did we have a second for that motion to Brian? Is there anyone opposed to that motion to refer it back to purchasing? Okay. So moved. So we'll refer that back to purchasing. Okay, so that's everything on our agenda for tonight. I just wanted to remind everybody before our next meeting in February. Sorry.
I think, Madam Chair, we're able to perhaps vote on the first part of that tender, which is the cargo van, I think.
Oh, did that go to two suppliers?
There are two recommendations. The discussion we were having was just in relation to the second recommendation on the 5 sedans. But there is a separate recommendation in relation to the Ford Transit cargo van, and there's two competitive bids there. There's a chance to perhaps deal with that recommendation.
Okay, great, good suggestion. So can we vote on the first recommendation to accept the tender for our cargo van?
The recommendation.
Yeah.
Councilor.
Oh, you did the, and anyone opposed to that? Okay, so we'll move forward with the first recommendation, and we'll table the second and refer that back to purchasing. Okay, so before we adjourn, I just wanted to remind everybody, at our last meeting, at our December meeting, and Mel, I'm not sure if you were here in December, we talked about ensuring that everybody have a ride-along to make sure that we're aware of what's happening in the field. So if you haven't scheduled that yet, there's still time to schedule that between now and our February meeting. I'm going out on Saturday, so the deputy chief, that's my big Saturday weekend. So everyone around the table will report back at our open session, and we'll get your experiences on your ride along with patrol, and we'll hear about that in the car.
In the car.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn our public session? John and Anne Marie second. Okay, thank you everybody.